Hello everyone, welcome to the continuation slash redux slash redefinition slash expanded version of my video blog entry about video games. Obviously the first episode was filmed the previous day on Monday, April 9th actually, hence the longer hair and my new haircut in this video. But after today's talk and discussion about video games in class, I felt like there's more that could be said about different aspects of gaming that I brought up in my last video that were kind of just glazed over, I guess. So I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about video games. So today's class, or the class over video games if you're watching this sometime after, was actually kind of cool and inspiring, I guess. And so the article by McGonigal and our class discussion kind of had me think about how I used to want to be a part of the video game industry and go into work in the video games. I was in communication studies, obviously, but at the time I started off doing organizational, and then I had minors in both Asian studies and digital media, just because I thought that that would be a nice combination to land a non-computer game design programming type job, but something that could still be important to that kind of gaming culture or gaming company. But obviously things didn't quite go as I had planned some years ago when I was first declared my major. I actually went to Japan and then came back, and I was like, oh, I better do some rearranging, so I dropped the Asian studies and the digital media. So it was like a total rehaul, after I actually went to Japan, and I thought oh my gosh, I need to find some way to ensure that I will come back here in the future some time from now. But anyway, I kind of digress. So the whole thing had me really kind of reminiscing about how awesome it is to be kind of a video gamer, which I thought was really cool in the McGonigal article and the video that we watched in class. That she was talking about all these skills that gaming kind of cultivates. Some of them were a bit hit and miss for me, but others were dead on, which I really kind of liked the whole epic wins kind of argument, and how it leaves gamers, I should say, with this kind of instilled value that you can go out and achieve all kinds of different things in the virtual world. So I kind of liked that her message was to how can we move that kind of mindset into the real world. And so maybe not on the massive level that she was talking about, but for me as a gamer, I can totally see and kind of am feeling inspired that I need to start embracing my gamer identity and capitalizing on my kind of can-do skills that I have in the video game world and bring them into my personal life or my real life, where I can go and tackle kind of any obstacle. Because in the video there was one point where she was talking about how many gamers, how they're kind of they can go out and save the world, and they think that they're awesome in game, that out of game or in the real world, that doesn't necessarily carry over, that video games are used more as an escape from real world problems, and that confidence that you have in video games doesn't necessarily carry over. And maybe that should be her kind of takeaway message on a personal level, is that gamers, while we kind of have this bad stigma and that people kind of dog on hardcore video game players, maybe we should kind of embrace our video game-ness and rock it with confidence. I don't know, but I just found the whole thing kind of really interesting. One of the questions that we talked about in class was, do video games, when sports, we have to talk about sports a little bit at the beginning, but do video games have influence? And I believe they do. In the last game I talked about getting emotional, or in the last game, I believe they do. In the last blog I talked about getting emotional at certain points in Mass Effect. I mean, that's true for any kind of game that you put in a lot of time with. As I said in the last blog, I'm really kind of drawn to games that are based around storytelling and that have a strong narrative. So games like that, I play a lot of RPGs. I've played several different Final Fantasy type games, and anyway, nothing is more satisfying than a Final Fantasy game, by the way, because you spend hundreds of hours, you spend at least 100 hours on that, just one playthrough alone, leveling up your characters, and it usually gets to the point where it is freaking epic in scale, and it's so tough, and that is the epic win. I was thinking about that when we were talking about like experiencing epic wins. I don't really feel like I've experienced epic wins in the Mass Effect game that I talked about in the last blog, but with Final Fantasy, especially Final Fantasy X, I felt like so accomplished at the end because I'm not like the best RPG, like straight up RPG, which is like where you take turns back and forth battling. Anyway, I'm not the best turn-based role-playing gamer type person, I should say, because RPG stands for role-playing game. I'm really not the best at that type of stuff, so I found it like extremely challenging. So by the time I beat that game, I was like so like freaking elated. That was like my epic win. But that's kind of an aside. I do believe that the games have quite a bit of influence, not just on a personal level though, because I think that it can affect a whole community. In the last blog, I talked a lot about the inclusion of LGBT romance options and the ability for your main character to be LGBT themselves in Mass Effect 3. I kind of mentioned the community that in passing towards the end of that blog, and I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit more. It's this community, and it's called Gaymers, G-A-Y-M-E-R. It's kind of this community of video game people who happen to be homosexual. One of the kind of downsides to video game culture, I guess, and video gamers as like gamers as a whole, is that they tend to be really homophobic. I'm not really sure why. I kind of like have my theory about it, but I think because video games kind of have like this social stigma around them that, you know, like people stay inside all day and like, you know, it's only for like geeky kids and stuff like that. Geeky kids who are often like made fun of in high school for, you know, not being manly enough or masculine and not playing sports, instead choosing to play video games. Sometimes, you know, if you're not manly, then that automatically equates you with being like homosexual or gay or, you know, whatever other kind of derogatory terms that you can come up for gay people. And so I think maybe that like constant hounding on people that may not be the typical picture of masculinity and happen to be gamers, maybe that like builds resentment in these kids, because some of the people, because like when you play online you hear a lot of derogatory comments towards gay people in general, and with the inclusion of any kind of LGBT theme or element in games usually will usually spark controversy, and there's all these kind of like battles on the internet and like arguments that break out on forums of games and all this kind of stuff about like, anyways, they just typically, gamers as in general that I find tend to be very like homophobic and kind of bigoted and awful. But I think it's kind of cool that now, in kind of the face of these kind of homophobic gamers out there, there is inclusion of these kind of, or there is inclusion of LGBT themes in games, which is really awesome, because I now know of Gamer, G-A-Y-M-E-R, communities out there on the internet, which are really cool. As I talked about in the last blog, I follow this kind of whole website that blogs about like gaming news and just like stuff that, you know, gaming news in general, but also they have pieces about like specifically towards like a gay LGBT audience. And they also have like forums, and you can share like your gamer tags and your friendship codes depending on whatever you play, your consoles or with that, or whichever. Let's say you want to find some gamers on like a specific game, you can like look up and like organize kind of game nights with people all over the country or the world, because there are people from around the world that are involved in these communities, which is kind of cool to play with those types of people. The article and how we talked about in class was talking about how, you know, gaming kind of cultivates this collaborative skill and then like empowers people to be more collaborative and to have friendships and stuff like that. I haven't really gotten into the online gaming too much in the past. Only just recently have I actually started doing the online parts, mostly because like online gaming kind of freaked me out at first because I didn't really like it. And some of the problems are that either very rarely do you actually get cool people that you want to continue to play with that are, you know, actually use the kind of online gaming to their advantage. I think like on multiplayer, like shooting games and stuff like that I've played before, like you either have really cool people that actually use like headphones and stuff like that and mics to, you know, like organize what's going on within the games, and then you have like 13-year-olds, like 10 to 13-year-olds that are just on there to be like stupid and like curse a lot and say a lot of derogatory things. I remember one time just playing and it was like so like immature. I just like muted everything because I did not want to hear them go on. And so it's kind of cool that they have that whole kind of community out there where you know instinctively that if you meet up with LGBT gamers and the friends that you make through that community online on the message boards or whatever, when you actually play games with them, you can kind of like feel like rest assured, you know, that they're not going to make like all these bigoted kind of homophobic remarks on through like the mics and chatting and stuff like that while you're playing that you would find just in some random like matchup. So to kind of bring it all together, the Mass Effect blog from last time and with the content is that the producers, BioWare, that make the game Mass Effect 3, it's kind of cool that they are recognizing that there is a community of LGBT gamers within this kind of stigmatized, underground-ish video game culture. So what I really think is awesome in the McGonagall article is that she says that video games can cultivate skills that can solve real-world problems. And one real-world problem is homophobia and acceptance of LGBT people, just like in general. And so I think games like Mass Effect 3 and the people at BioWare that have started to make these strides of including LGBT themes and characters in their games can really make a real-world difference in that it starts people down a road of acceptance, because the more they interact with LGBT people through virtual games, maybe that will like carry over into their real lives and provide more acceptance for LGBT people in their real lives. So I think that video games can and do have influence, which is the whole point of this video, and expanding upon what I said the last time. So thanks for watching. I hope this wasn't like too confusing and rantish. I didn't make a whole lot of notes for this video. It was all just kind of thoughts that are jumping around in my head. So I would really like some feedback and your comments from me, all you. If you have any ideas or anything to say about what I've talked about in this blog, or the last blog for that matter, and I would welcome you to leave those for me. And again, thanks for watching.